GI. Let's invite to join us on the panel. Then we also invite Dr. Eric Efa Donyina of NETCO. Kindly join us on the panel. Thank you. They have been magnanimous. They've also given me a seat. Give me a round of applause. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll just do a little introduction. So we'll start from you, from the Energy Commission. Just mention your name, the institution you represent, your designation, for the benefit of our audience, and then we start the discussion.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Frederick Ken Apia, mechanical engineer by profession. I'm in charge of renewable energy at the Energy Commission, Ghana. Thank you.
Yeah, hello, good morning once again. My name is Francis Kemanson. I'm an associate professor at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and I'm the director of the Bruhammon Energy Center. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pauline Anaman, and I'm an external advisor to the EU Negative Emissions Project. It's a consortium of 16 organizations developing new technologies for net zero.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Bärbel Freyer. I'm the Chief Technical Officer of the Energy Service Center at the AGI. I am there as an integrated expert.
Good morning. My name is Eric Efa Donyina, Head of Renewable Energy, NETCO.
Thank you. Thank you. As I already mentioned, my name is Edmond Combat from the Institute for Energy Security. So we'll start with our discussion. Obviously, to be focused more on the recommendations and findings out of the report. But for preliminary comments, I'll start with you from the Energy Commission. As you are already aware, Ghana has committed to SDG 7 that we will improve on the renewable energy sector by ensuring that by 2030, we have 10% of the energy mix coming from renewables. And then we also want to ensure that at least energy efficiency will achieve about 20% with industrial facilities. You being the regulator, I want to start and ask you, are we on course to achieve those targets? Are they feasible?
All right, thank you. Well, in terms of on course, I will say yes, in a way. It demands certain explanation. In 2017, let me start by 2010. Before 2011, when the Renewable Energy Act was promulgated, there were certain challenges that we identified in the system. Key one was the high cost of renewable energy, and then low utilization, promotion, and other things, and so on. So the Renewable Energy Act brought some kind of interest into the sector. We had laid down certain framework, legal framework, for investors to know what to do to get it attracted. Key thing in the act was, let's say, the feed-in tariff, which was just to spell people or interest into the sector. And of course, we had much interest shown in the sector. If you look at the first stage of our licensing process, the kind of, on a number of companies, especially foreign companies that showed interest, were very high. We went ahead to look at the Renewable Energy Master Plan. We look at NDPC's medium-term targets. We look at certain developments in the market, the resources that we have. And we realized that we could easily achieve the 10%. Even in the Renewable Energy Master Plan, the targets were higher than these because we're using NDPC's target. Just after we have finished developing the Renewable Energy Master Plan, the excess capacity issue came up. And of course, we are in an energy ecosystem. We cannot say that renewable, we don't care whatever is happening in the system. So we have to find a way of helping each other in the ecosystem. So if there's an effect on, let's say, the distribution utilities, we have to find a way of slowing down the renewables. That is why it seems like we have not achieved much in the renewable energy subsector. But in terms of the strategies that we lay down to achieve them, we will be able to achieve. Even now, as we talk, there are certain restrictions or regulatory policy directives that is slowing down the deployment of renewable energy, just to help address the overcapacity issue. However, as a backup plan, even if we support the public utilities like We Power Authority, VRA, Volta River Authority, and other agencies to just commit to what they have planned, we will be able to achieve the 10%. So the 10% is not a high target that we will say we can't achieve. We can easily achieve. As we talk now, we has done 50 megawatt. VRA is doing about 20, just above 20 megawatt. As we talk, the installed capacity, including distributed generation, is almost like 130 megawatt in the system, which is about getting to 3%. So we have moved from the 1% to the 1%, and now we are moving forward. But we still, aside that, we still need to find a way of bringing certain comfort into the market that will spur the private sector also to join forces of whatever public institutions or public utilities are doing for us to achieve that target. In terms of the energy efficiency, that is also being worked on. Of course, we want to switch from fuel-based power plants to more of gas-based, and also the single to combined cycle that will also improve the efficiency in the system, which is on course. So in a nutshell, I can say that we are on course concerning the targets. Though it may look like it's slow, we may not achieve it, but our backup plan can easily achieve it. That is using the public utilities.
Thank you. Just a follow-up. There is this school of thought, and if you look at the research, the findings that the report states, there's an argument for, some people are arguing that large hydro should be classified as renewable. And if you take the large hydro out, and you look at what we are getting from solar, it's less than 100 megawatts, what is on stream. Do you subscribe to that? Do you think the large hydro should be classified as renewable? Is it just a way to meet the target, or we are really committed
Well, we don't have any choice. Because if you talk about Germany, Spain, all the countries mentioning high penetration of renewable energy, in there you find large hydro. China is mentioning what percentage. They have all those big dams classified. In 2011, when the Renewable Energy Act was being enacted, because we wanted the smaller, in Ghana, we don't have much large hydro bigger than 100 megawatt. So by certain reason, we have to put in the law that for the Renewable Energy Act and its provisions, especially feed-in tariff, renewable energy refers to hydro less than 100 megawatts, so that they can take advantage of the feed-in tariff and so on. So in a global sense, renewable energy is renewable energy, including large hydro. So when, just last year, 2020, November, when we were amending the Renewable Energy Act, we made conscious effort to amend that act, provisions of the act. So now we have removed that restriction. Now, when we talk about renewable energy, it should include large hydro, because it's part, everybody globally is mentioning it as part of their penetration. We did it because of a reason. Now that reason is forgotten. So now we have, in terms of the definition of the 10% penetration, that is where maybe whether to include large hydro as part of the definition for 10% target or not. That has become a debate. But I think we shouldn't confuse the market. We've been doing the 10% policy target for a very long time. It's even captured in our NDCs as penetration. So I think that we just need to redefine what we mean by the 10%. And that 10% always and had been, we're talking about modern forms of renewable energy. That is excluding the large hydro. So we can find a way of defining it well, keeping the 10%. That will still help us to increase the modern forms of renewable energy, solar, wind, biomass, waste to energy, and other technologies we are talking about, without changing necessarily that 10% target.
Thank you. We go to Prof. Based on the recommendations that you've given so far, it's clear that there are some issues with data, especially with the audit side for energy efficiency. You have mentioned that there is an argument that some of the cost for the audit should be shared, so that once the entities that are benefiting from the audit, also their skin is in the game, they will be able to ensure that the recommendations that comes out, they actually implement them to improve and ensure that we meet our target with the energy efficiency as we have agreed to the NDCs. How can that really work out? If the institutions are not ready to contribute, should we allow it? Should we still go ahead? Or should they be, what kind of mechanism should be put in place to ensure that they agree to contribute for the audit?
Well, I think there are, when it comes to industries, there are issues with data protection, for instance. Some of them don't want to share correct data because they think that certain operations may be compromised when they do that. And so they won't do it. So it's important that they are assured of that data protection. I mean, by the agency that is in charge of performing these activities, so that they, they don't find their data in the gutter somewhere tomorrow. I think that's a very important process. But going beyond that, it's important that there is some regulation from the regulator, from the Energy Commission or whichever agency is in charge, because we want to improve the system. It's our country. We want to improve our energy consumption issues. And so if we want to do that, sometimes you provide incentives, but sometimes you also provide some, you have a way of forcing the system to adapt to what you want to do. If there are more efficient motors for a company to use and then to reduce our, say, peak demand, for instance, so that we don't generate too much during peak hours, why shouldn't we enforce that they do it? And the beauty about some of these issues are that when they do it, in the end, it inures to their benefit because they would reduce their demand, and then over the years, they're able to pay back whatever investments they do into some of these highly efficient systems, right? So that they're able to. So it's important that awareness creation is increased as part of what we are doing, but then we should also follow up with some regulation also to try to incentivize them to do what they're expected to do.
So thank you for the answer. On the benchmark, how do we develop a benchmark for this kind of audits and to ensure that we achieve the energy efficiency targets? Will academia cooperate with industry? Do we still need to do more research upon this? How do we have a baseline data, a baseline benchmark that we can use to be able to achieve this?
Well, there are already established energy management systems in place. There is the ISO 50001. There are ISO systems in place already for doing this. And there are some trained energy auditors. We don't have a lot of them in the system, but we do have some trained energy auditors. In fact, in my institution, we have a program with MEDA now. So my center is an energy service center for MEDA. We have trained energy auditors at my center who are able to do energy auditing. But if you look at the number of industries we have around, we don't have enough. So we are part of this University of Energy and Natural Resources are part. There's also the Accra Technical University. Now, these are the public university systems supported by MIDA. There are, and to be able to, if you are benchmarking, we should be able to tell for sure that if you produce, say, a can of milk, you should be using XX kilowatt hours of electricity. This is the benchmark, globally, this is the average benchmark. So that if we set our system, if we do the measurement and we are doing like 50% more, then we know that, well, we are not doing well. We need to be able to come to that average global system. So how do we get to that place? What are the systems we need to put in place? Are we to change some things? Are we to just change our practices to be able to get there? These are issues that I think we can take a look at.
Thank you. Pauline, one of the issues that came up as he was presenting the research is the issue of financing for energy service companies, especially those who are doing this renewable solar, especially the interest rates are high. We know, I think banks like Carl Bank and EcoBank are doing something in that sector, but still the rates are very high. And the turnaround time, sometimes they give the credit and you have to start paying in 30 days, when the turnaround time for you to do installation and finish sometimes is quite long. So what can be done? What can be done with these findings? How can there be a collaboration between the energy service companies and international organizations and partners to ensure that the cost of financing for renewable energy, especially solar, is brought down?
Thank you very much. So I'll give a practical example of how this issue can be solved. Green financing, and they intend to provide credit to the government through the banks to SMEs. And the rate is very low. The rate is low. This intervention is meant to make financing accessible to SMEs and even households. So coming from this angle, this is one of the important rules that international companies and organizations can do. There's also the SunRef that Energy Commission is working on, which is also doing a similar thing. Now the question is, how prepared are the local banks, our banks, to do this kind of business? The banks are always looking at their bottom lines and how to recoup their monies fast. There's also the issue of macroeconomic issues, bank rates affecting, the base rate affecting interbank rates and all of that. So I think, honestly, that until we address some of these macroeconomic issues, we cannot get anywhere unless we get these interventions from these international organizations. So we have to solve that issue of our economic management. And we have to note that everything is linked. Nothing exists on its own. The energy sector is even linked to the housing sector and spatial planning. It is linked to manufacturing and businesses. So we need to take a holistic view of the ecosystem to identify where the loopholes are. Until that is done, we will be going round and round about it and not get anywhere. So that is what I think.
Thank you. We come to you, Brema. You are representing the private sector. Your members, AGI members, how is business?
Well, I think there are other aspects which are also is a bit of a hardship for the businesses in Ghana currently. Yeah.
Okay.
Generally, yeah, I would say competition is there, and still, I think everybody is still struggling from the COVID times, trying to get out of it.
Thank you. So my question to you is, how is cost of electricity affecting your members' businesses? Is it a problem? Is it your number one challenge currently?
Well, it's difficult to generalize it. It depends on the sector, which sector you're talking about. But there are definitely sectors which have up to 30% of their production cost is from electricity, and which really constitutes a big challenge for them to produce and to stay competitive in the market. There are others who are not suffering that much, but still it means it's a big part of the production, yes.
Okay. When the Prof was presenting the report, he mentioned that a survey that you conducted among your members of around 1,300 in 2019, the highest challenge that your members mentioned that they faced was not interest rates, it was not taxes, but it was cost of electricity. That has been one of the big challenges. And I'm asking this because as we are all in the industry, we are aware that in the energy sector, debt is building up and discussions are ongoing, which foretell that cost of electricity is even likely to go up. So how is that going to affect AGI? And when I'm saying this as a...
Yeah, so what we are doing, okay, we can say it like this, it affects them, that is out of question, and what we are trying to do to assist more, okay, we can wait for the costs to come down generally from the government, but we can also, as it was already mentioned, do a lot of other things in-house, helping ourselves, yeah? Just not waiting until the time comes, but already making the first steps. And that's what I say, what I agree with Mr. Kemansour, Dr. Kemansour, in looking more into the energy efficiency, trying to save costs from that side. It is not a very, so what we realize, it is not a very known activity to do, so that it's rather like putting some solar panels on top of the roof and think, I solved my problem with that. But what has not been really mentioned, that one thing goes into the other. I cannot, it is not advisable to invest in solar PV without having done an energy audit before. It's like to fill a bucket full of water with a hole, yeah, if the bucket has a hole. So I think it is what it needs. It's more a holistic approach, not only on specific activities. So working on that side, I think it would be of great help. Yeah, whether you use penalties, Dr. Kemansour said, or using incentives, or what we are trying to do. We're coming in from our side is trying to convince the companies, trying to sensitize, give them information, because it's not only about putting penalties, it's also to making them understand that this is a real issue and it's not something which comes later from the government maybe in and will be from the regulatory body. Everybody has to do an energy audit, but also what is it for? What does it help me? I think this is part of our work at the AGI.
Okay, so another question is still on you. What can government and development partners do to help you with your quest to reduce your cost of electricity? We know some of your members are considering renewable energy alternative sources of power. What are some of the bottlenecks that your members are facing? And just to add to that, there's a call for department and companies that will be audited to also have their skin in the game by contributing. Is it a good call?
Again, please, the last sentence I have not. Please repeat it.
There's a call for your members to contribute to the energy audits financially, so that as they contribute, when the recommendations come, they are more likely to implement it. Is it a good call?
Well, the energy audit is, that's what I say. It's of course, okay, energy audit has to be paid for. Somebody has to do it, and it's not an easy task. It's quite a lot of work involved. So somebody has to pay for it at the end. So what we are working on is to convince the companies to pay for the audit, and to understand that within the year, some of the activities maybe, or some of the recommendations, if you implement them, you can even pay off the cost for the audit. So this is something also which has to be understood. We're talking about saving a lot of money, and as it was already also mentioned, it can be up to 30%, depending on your investment. But you have For example, we're talking about zero cost implementation, which can already save you 6% of your energy bill. So these are things which have to be understood. I think everything is evolving around sensitization, informing people, making it a talk, and discussing it openly. And I think with this, it can be also a welcoming activity for the company and not a burden. So. Yes, so the first question was
what government and development partners can do.
Yes, I think a big chance, and there's also paving the way now, is on the feed-in net metering. You call it net metering here, or allowing companies to feed in. So giving them also an incentive. There have been companies who have already been waiting. They have not invested fully in solar. They know they could invest much more, but they still have the issues that, for example, they don't produce on weekends. What are they going to do? The solar, the energy produced will just go into nowhere. So giving them a chance to feed into the grid at an agreed cost or an agreed fee would absolutely help the companies also in envisaging or thinking about doing energy audits and investing into renewables, I believe. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Ifa, I come to you. And this question you will answer, and then our Mr. Apieto will answer part of it from the Energy Commission. It's about the metering. You see, the grid code system is not democratized. The argument is that there's overcapacity, you need revenue. So bulk consumers who want to bring down their costs of operation and improve their cash flows are forced to use the system, because you will not allow people to, you will not grant people access. There are other companies, energy service companies, that wants to use the system to even export power into the Sahelian market. But all of that appears, that opportunity is not being given to them. So I'll start with you. Is it that when you give them the opportunity to access your system and be able to do the feeding, to use the metering system, is it going to impact on your revenue? Is it going to affect you so badly? That is why you're not allowing them to do that.
Thank you. Are you talking about renewable energy-based generation?
Yes.
Or generation from the conventional systems?
Renewable energy-based generation.
Okay. We're in the process of implementing the renewable energy-based net metering system. We in NETCO have so far connected at least 1 megawatt of renewable energy-based generation. The implementation has suffered a bit of setback in the sense that we've been complaining about the inequities in the net metering tariff. Currently, the rate is 1-to-1. When they inject 1 kilowatt hour into our network, they take 1 kilowatt hour. And we think that that is not fair, because they are not supporting us to maintain and manage our network. If you look at it, it's like someone keeping their beer in your fridge all the time. When they are thirsty, they come and collect it, but they don't contribute to your electricity bill. That is how it is. But having said that, we haven't put a stop to the implementation. We are still implementing the net metering system. But the law requires us to complain to the regulators, which we have done. We've sent a petition to the Energy Commission, to the Ministry of Energy, and then to PURC, and they are looking at it, so that when the inequities are cured, it will help us to assist the implementation of the net metering system, and by extension, the Ghana Renewable Energy Law. We are law-abiding, and we are not stopping the implementation because of the inequities. We have confidence in the regulators. We submitted our complaints to them. We are going ahead with the implementation, hoping that they will resolve it to the mutual satisfaction of both parties.
Can we hear what, do you have a timeline when this issue can be resolved? Where are we on this?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, and thank you, Doctor. Well, I wouldn't say that currently net metering rate is 1:1. It is on hold. Nobody gets credit for, even that 1:1 you are talking about, nobody gets credit for. So, that is the first one. Secondly, it's very true that proposal has been made to the regulators since I think 2018 or so. Certain proposals have been made that we look at finding a way of also supporting, just a little fee, supporting the maintenance of the network. So that is also okay. We've had various stakeholder engagement, both with private sector, consumers, public utilities, and so on, and have explained very well all the issues concerning net metering. We've taken their request into play because, for example, the capacity for you to hook onto their network used to be 500 kilowatts. We have come to a compromise now. We've lowered it to 100 kilowatts, just to give some kind of comfort to the distribution utilities, so that we start again and start learning. In fact, when we started the net metering, all the key stakeholders were on board. I'm talking about public. So ECG was on board, NETCO, and so on. And we all concluded on the 1:1, because at that time, it was even, the 1:1 was just even advantage to even the public utilities, because there was even a proposal for, and it came from the utilities, surprisingly. It was understandable because at that time, high cost of renewable energy. When we started the rooftop solar program, for example, 500 watts, we're buying it at 1,900 Ghana cedis. Now, 330 watts, you can get it less than 800 Ghana cedis. So costs have come down. At that time, it was not so. So 1:1 was an ideal. And then the whole sector, there's a committee that was set up by ministry. And we concluded on that. But of course, things have advanced. Tariffs became higher. Cost of renewable energy or solar, the utilities. And then we also understood them, put on hold. In terms of implementation way forward, there's a program coming on that has a condition precedent that the net metering must start again, and that is a scaling up renewable energy program by the Climate Investment Fund. We call it SREP. Under it, we are doing 15,000 net meter system. The application has been submitted, and AFDB is the lead bank, supported by SECO, that's the Swiss government, and so on, and other developing partners. And it's contingent on the fact that net metering must start again, resume. The regulators are aware. We were just waiting for our boards to come so that we present something to them. As we talk, PURC has developed a methodology for net metering. And all the utilities have been made known of this kind of methodology. I don't know whether the private sector, and I know, for example, GIZ too has seen it, AFDB has seen it, because a presentation has to be made to them because of the SREP. So we are on course. PRC just had their board, I think, last month or so, and therefore it's now going to be tabled, and then we'll look at how the technical committee will also look at it, and then we'll look at the enactment of that, or gazetting of that tariff. Once it comes, then it becomes operational again. Commission too, we have reviewed the net metering code together with the market. We've taken on board some of these suggestions, like we should have capacity for a year. If we subscribe, we get to the maximum, we just stop and wait for the next year, first come, first served. So all these things have been taken into consideration. Another thing too is that how much you can inject back into the system, what percentage of it, that too has been addressed. So I can't give you timeline as to next week, next 2 weeks, and so on. By law, it's only PURC, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, that can approve tariffs. Commission, we are implementer of the law, implementer of such programs. But in terms of tariff, it depends on PURC. So we have to just take our time. They've heard it. They've done a methodology, 3 scenarios. And I think, Doctor, you have seen that methodology. So once they get their technical committee and the board to approve it, then they gazette it to become something that we can operationalize. But the last point is that we want to use the SREP program to streamline net metering program. So what it means is that we hope SREP will start next year, first quarter or second quarter. What it means is that every application for net metering has to go through the SREP program so that we can monitor it, help the distribution utilities, because they also have certain kind of fear that when we scale it up, it may have impact on their revenue. So those things are being considered under SREP. We are doing under the Sustainable Energy for Fund program. So we can balance the issue and resolve the kind of fear that they have, as well as what the private sector or the market wants to do.
Thank you. I'm coming back to you, Doc. Last year, data shows that at the point we had peak demand of around 2,800 megawatts. And the reserve margin, I think, is 18%. Data is pointing to the fact that from next year going, our demand and supply are likely to even. So if that happens, and members of, let's say, AGI or entities wants to go and get solar and do their own things and go off your grid, going forward, instead of bringing other power from other sources, like the normal sources we know, thermal and other things, will it still have an impact on your revenue after the overcapacity issue is dealt with?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to have an impact on the amount of energy that we save and subsequently the associated revenue. It's a process that we cannot stop. It's an evolution. And instead of we fighting it, I think that we have to flow with it. We can't stop people from going solar if they find it more economical, if they find it more convenient, especially if they don't have confidence in our system. If the quality of supply is not up to the level they expect, who can stop them from going? So we in the utility distribution industry are also strategizing and positioning ourselves appropriately and strategically so that we can flow with the change. Through the intervention of GIZ, we've started developing business strategies which will help us stay afloat and maybe also get involved in the installation of renewable energy-based generation for some of our key customers, the customers we call milk cow customers. Because if we sit aloof and allow all of them to go, we do so at our peril. So we are not fighting the system, we are flowing with it. And that also requires that our license of operation and instrument of incorporation be amended. And Energy Commission and then the PRC, Minister of Energy, are aware that we've submitted proposals or we've given them hint that we will be seeking their approval to have our instrument of incorporation and the operating licenses amended so that we can be part of the process.
Okay, thank you. So it boils down to revenue is a major concern. So Pauline, I want to ask, as Ghana pursues this renewable energy and energy efficiency targets to ensure that we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, how can we benefit from the carbon capture credit coming on the back of COP26?
So we have to look at this from two perspectives. When we talk about carbon credit, it means somebody wants to emit. And so they have the certificate to emit. And they are getting that certificate for somebody who is taking out the carbon. So depending on what we want to do, where we stand as a country, do we want to emit? If we want to emit, then the carbon credit will benefit us. But the question is, who is going to give us that carbon credit? Now, I asked the question whether we want to emit in context. I've noticed that a lot of oil-producing African countries are very adamant to the energy transition. And the argument has been that there's the need for just transition. Energy transition will mean abandonment of our oil and gas resources, and that will mean loss of revenues. It will also mean we cannot ensure energy access, because in the whole of Africa, if you look at Ghana and South Africa, we have the highest penetration of electricity access, but much of it comes from the fossil fuel. So if we are coming from the perspective of we want to emit, then the carbon credits will enable us to continue to exploit our oil and gas resources. But then there's the cost to it. We understand the implications of the climate change. We've seen examples of how it's affecting people. And whether we want to emit will depend on what cost we are willing to bear. Now, on the other hand, if we want to give the credit to others, that would mean that it will help us to transition. And for me, as a Ghanaian, and also as a pro-energy transition person, it's a very difficult position to be in, to think that we have oil and gas to exploit and ensure all the benefits that come with it. But at the same time, we've signed an international agreement which would also have environmental benefits and social protection benefits. We need to critically assess where we want to be. I would go for energy transition, providing the credit by investing in renewable energy technologies. One of the things that energy brings to countries like Ghana and Africa is that it enables us to industrialize. And industrialization has to do with adding value to our minerals, because we have so much minerals that could feed into renewable energy and electronic vehicle technologies. DRC has about more than 70% of the global supply. We have Ghana discovering lithium and all of that. And we have documents that have insisted that African countries should add value to our mineral resources. So the energy transition, for me, I keep saying, is a technological revolution that enables countries like Ghana to add value to the minerals, specifically in renewable energy, technology development, and also technology for electronic vehicles. Once we do that, we will see that we may not be losing after all. There are some benefits to it. And then we can give that carbon credit to others to also, so the carbon credit in this sense will also be a source of income to us, because already we are industrial, reducing emissions and getting paid for it.
Thank you. That's very good. Prof, as you presented the findings, we are told, and as we know, about 15% of our country, especially in the rural areas, still do not have access to electricity. Should these 15%, should government, will you advise that government should allow this to connect it on renewable, solar, and other sources?
I mean, for government, it boils down to cost. Some analysis, even build, make us understand better. So, it is decided to speak to renewable. I mean, mini grids, rising renewable, some genset.
If you're looking for someone who is very entrepreneurial, then it's got to be Harrison Mati.
I've been into bicycle rental. I've been a shoemaker before. I've been a farmer. I've tried fashion a bit. I actually thought of modeling at a point. I know someone. I discouraged myself from doing it, because I couldn't make time for rehearsal. And I've tried a few things. I've tried a few projects here and there in fisheries and then in solar. And I can say I've failed in a few or in a lot. And I've learned a lot of lessons from them as well.
It was what he learned from his mom's chop bar that would make him interested in starting a restaurant. This Wednesday on the Joy Business Fan, on TV, radio, online and on ground, it is powered by Joy Business and supported by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, and MTN. Everywhere you go.
Make you guys look for alternative sources of power. If you look at what you are paying for electricity and you compare it to countries, is Ghana's business community or industries paying for more compared to, let's say, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria, and all of that?
Off again? No, it's on again. Good, thank you. I must admit I'm not with the numbers, with these energy costs and the numbers. I'm not too conversant, so I have to just say what I was aware or what I was reading in the study here is okay. I looked at the average cost, and the most recent World Bank report is telling it's about. In West Africa, on the average, the cost of the land, generally the cost of electricity, Ghana ranges higher cost and lower countries which are more cheaper. Do not know exactly where the numbers are coming from. This is also the cost of electricity via data counted or not? Yeah, so. Definitely, Ghana is on the higher side, and it constitutes a problem in production, exporting, cross-country. That is called to be competitive, of course, and not talking about products coming further away.